separation anxiety is a fairly common condition. It's estimated anywhere between 14 to 17% of dogs suffer from separation anxiety in the United States, but we certainly don't diagnose nearly that number of dogs. And so the question is, are we missing them? And we probably are, and asking provocative questions. So there's two things I think you can do as a practitioner. One is you can ask the owner. They may not offer that information, or when they do offer it, don't ignore it. Sometimes we do that as well because we're busy. We have a lot of other things to deal with. So ask the question of, are you concerned about your dog when you're gone from the home? Is it showing any evidence of the behaviors that we know are associated with separation anxiety, which include 3 hallmark ones: destruction, vocalization, or elimination. And then there's a whole bunch of ancillary clinical signs like hypersalivation, etc. A lot of times owners don't know about that because there's no way to assess it when you get home. You don't know if your dog's been pacing the whole time. So we certainly should ask about that. But I think the other thing we can do, if we're really going to be proactive about this, is that we can actually look at that client's profile, if you will, and see if that pet, that dog, has got risk factors for separation anxiety. So here's some of the interesting risk factors, I think. There's various studies that have looked at these, and I do need to put a caveat in here that risk factors are not necessarily, they're just correlations, not necessarily causation, but it's a place to start. And once again, these may be red flags that come up that say, you know what, I need to pursue this further with this client and really make sure this dog doesn't have separation anxiety. So the first one is actually if you're a single owner. So dogs that are owned by a single individual instead of a family, so multiple people, have a higher risk of separation anxiety. Another one is source of the dog. So where did the dog come from? And we know that dogs that come from shelters or that come from pet stores, in a different study, were at higher risk, as opposed to dogs that were acquired through a friend or family or through a breeder. Those did not have the association as a risk factor. So source. So let's say you're now thinking, okay, the 31-year-old single female just adopted this dog from the shelter. Those should be some red flags going up for you. Another one is an apartment dwelling situation as opposed to a traditional home. So the dogs that live in apartments are at increased risk or have a higher risk factors associated with it. And there could be, once again, reasons for that, which are, for example, if you live in an apartment complex and your dog's barking all day, maybe the neighbors complain more next door, and so you actually find out your dog has separation anxiety. So once again, not necessarily causation, but there is correlation there. And actually living in an urban environment versus a suburban environment or rural environment. So those dogs who live in urban environments could be, once again, correlated with the fact that it's not tolerated, the signs of separation anxiety. So we've got a single female owner, we've got actually gender of the dog, and a couple studies, they showed a slight trend for male dogs being overrepresented and actually neutered dogs. Now in the United States, most of our dogs are neutered, so it's kind of we do it for pet overpopulation here primarily, but maybe the male dogs get more complaints of separation anxiety because they're bigger and they bark more deeply or they do more destruction, who knows. But once again, so male, single owner, we've got an apartment dwelling situation. All those things should be little, and if you got from a shelter or pet store, little red flags for you to say, maybe I should pursue asking questions about this dog. Other risk factors or things that you should pay attention to are that if the owner tells you things like, my dog follows me closely when I'm home, so the Velcro dog, or the dog that won't eat when they're gone. So they say, I left out something for it, I come back, it's still there, and right when I get home, it gobbles up the food. So once again, these are all little signs that maybe this dog is anxious about the owner's departure. And then finally, if the dog suffers from some other phobia, they have a higher likelihood of suffering from separation anxiety, and one specifically is a noise phobia. So once again, not all dogs with a noise phobia have separation anxiety or vice versa, but there isn't a correlation that you see those two concurrent diseases happening at the same time. So if they have horrible 4th of July, they don't like that holiday because the dog is frantic, once again, you may want to pursue some questioning about the clinical signs of separation anxiety with that particular owner.